Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to make delicious smoked short ribs that are super smoky. They've got some nice bark, they've got a smoke ring, and they're really tender and delicious. If you don't follow some of these methods, you're going to come out with something that's really dry, doesn't have a lot of bark, doesn't have a smoke ring, and it doesn't have a lot of moisture on the inside. So make sure you follow the steps in this recipe. Let's get to the video. Now these short ribs are below select grade, and that means they're very lean and don't have much fat. The short ribs you buy from your butcher will probably have a lot more fat, and they'll probably be easier to cook as a result. So keep that in mind. I'm cooking these to preserve moisture as much as possible because I don't have all that fat to fall back on for all that juiciness. If you flip your rack over, you'll see that it has a very thick membrane on the back. On pork ribs, I would remove this membrane, but on short ribs, I leave it on because it keeps everything together nicely. Otherwise, the meat tends to just disintegrate off the bone and slide off when you get closer to the end of the cook. I'm giving this a heavy layer of rub all around and then sprinkling on my kosher salt afterwards so I can clearly see what portion of the meat is getting salt and how much goes on each portion. The rub recipe is in the description section below, so check that out if you're interested, or really use any type of rub that you want to use. Now, as I let the meat sweat and absorb the rub, I'm trussing these up with some butcher's string to keep everything together throughout the cook. This is optional, but near the end of the cook, your short ribs will be very tender and they'll want to fall off the bone really easily, so this helps them keep together. I put these on my pit boss at 200 degrees with some competition blend pellets. This is because on a pellet grill, you don't get much smoke flavor if it's set at 225 or above, unless you're using a pellet tube or an amazing pellet smoker. So you need to set this to the P setting on the pit boss smoker if you want some heavier smoke flavor. So I had this on P3 smoke setting, and that should get you hovering around 200 degrees with some nice smoke rolling. During the cook, I had a water pan in the smoker for a bit of extra moisture, and I laid down some more rub and spritzed it with some apple juice every few hours. This builds up layers and helps give you that really nice dark black bark that I personally really like. I use apple juice to spritz for this particular set of short ribs because all the sugar in that apple juice really helps build the bark up. After 6 hours on P3 or 200 degrees if you're using another smoker, check your temperature and see where you're at. If you're below 165 degrees internal, then it's time to crank up the heat. I cranked mine up to 275 degrees for 2 hours until these ribs hit 165 degrees internal. Then I took them to the kitchen to wrap them. To wrap them, I spritzed the butcher paper with some apple juice just to add some flexibility and some extra moisture to it, and then I wrapped the ribs tightly in that butcher's paper. I prefer to use butcher's paper over foil for short ribs and brisket because it lets the steam out a little bit so the bark doesn't dissolve in all the steam that's being generated, and that can easily happen if you're wrapping it tightly in aluminum foil. And after another hour or so at 275, check the temperature and pull them when you hit at around 203 degrees internal. All right guys, these short ribs are done resting and I'm really excited to dig into them. You know, after a really long work week when I'm super stressed out, normally I used to come home and I used to order a pizza and I used to open that pizza box and I was like, oh, I got so excited about it. Now that I know how to make barbecue, I could dig into something like this and it's just so much better, and you just like dig into this awesome short rib or this piece of barbecue and it just tastes so good. It just takes my mind off work, takes all that stress away. But that's just me personally. I don't know if you guys feel that way with barbecue. So I'm really excited to dig into this. So let's take a look at it. Let's undo this wrap. Wow, there's the juices coming out. Try not to get them all over my counter. Whew. Wow. Geez, I did not expect that. Look at that bark. Look how black it is. Oh my God. That's crazy. The ribs have come back off of the meat. They're pulling back. Oh man, this looks good. You can't even really see the twine that I trussed it up with. I'm gonna cut that off, but it's crazy how the bark sort of formed over top of it. That looks really good. I was kind of worried because I had a bit of an accident about 2 hours into the cook. I was filming for another video and all of a sudden my wife says, hey, look over there, the smoker is like going out of control. And I look over and my pit boss is smoking like crazy. And usually, if you guys are used to a pellet smoker, it doesn't really give off that much smoke. And usually if there's a lot of smoke coming off it, it means that you're having a flame out or a fire in it, or you've run out of pellets. So I sort of rushed over there, checked it out, and luckily it was just my fault. I didn't fill up the hopper box the night before, so just ran out of pellets, and the smoke got super heavy because there just weren't enough pellets to feed the fire, and it sort of burnt out by itself. So all I did was I just took the short ribs off of the pit boss, put them to the side. I took out all the grill grates and the heat shield and heat deflector and everything, scooped out all the sawdust and everything, and cleaned it out a little bit. I didn't vacuum it out, I just sort of took a spoon and sort of manually cleaned it up. I'll vacuum it tomorrow because I wanted to start cooking on it right away. I didn't want to like suck up any on fire particles or hot ashes into my vacuum cleaner. Then I just got started again, and I got smoking and overcame the issue. So a little bit of a hiccup, but got past it, and this was the final product, which was well worth it. There we go. All right. Look at that. Nice and juicy. I'll give you guys a close-up of that. And you can see that, look at all that moisture coming out. That looks super good. Let's give this a taste. Get a really barky piece here. That's really good.